like to call to order the September 4th meeting of the Wilmington City Planning Commission. I would ask at this time to all please stand, remove any non-military caps. Oh, and it's on. Can you hear me now? All right. Let's try that again. Let me call to order the September 4th meeting of the Wilmington City Planning Commission. At this point, I would ask everyone to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove any non-military caps. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As I look around, we have no absences, and at this point I'd like to welcome our newest member, Livian Jones, to the commission. So, Livian, welcome.
I'm very excited. Thank you.
Please hold on to that. Mr. Attorney, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We are going to, a couple things a little different on the agenda. We have a bit of housekeeping to do. We have to elect a new chair, and so we're going to actually move that item up to the top and do that, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the meeting. So at this point, I would open the table to if there are any nominations for chair of the commission.
I would like to nominate Mr. Jack Pollock for chair.
Any other?
Motion. Second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. At that point, then, we need to nominate a vice chair. So I will open the table for nominations for vice chair.
I move to nominate Commissioner Danny Adams for vice chair.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was quick. And I think Commissioner Kofer is willing to switch seats with you now. So,
How about next meeting, and we'll set up down here. Let's do it next meeting.
let me proceed with the agenda. Reading the preamble, it's all matters requiring commission action shall be presented to the Planning Commission by the planning staff and or the applicant. In situations where staff is the applicant, there will be only one presentation. Staff will make the first presentation. The applicant will make the second presentation. Both are limited to 5 minutes apiece. To maintain an orderly meeting, all presentations shall proceed without interruption unless the commission desires to intervene with questions or comments. We do have a public hearing, so the chair will open the public hearing for those physically present wishing to speak about an item. Those in favor of an item shall be heard first, followed by those opposed to the item. A 10-minute time limit will be allowed for public comment in favor, and 10-minute will also be for people in opposition. The staff member and who is tracking time tonight? Patrick, okay. We'll track the 10-minute time periods and we'll notify the speaker at the 5-minute mark, at the 1-minute mark, and verbally call time when time expires. The chair, in their discretion, may extend these time periods. All groups, organizations, neighborhoods, or similar associations desiring to comment are asked to appoint one spokesperson to present their concerns or point of view to the commission on each agenda item. The public has been encouraged to submit their comments in writing via a web-based form located on the City of Wilmington's website. All comments received prior to 3 p.m. today were forwarded unedited to the Planning Commission. All comments received will be delivered to City Council when the item advances. All comments received will be made available to the public if required. All votes will be voice votes. After proper motions are made and consistency statements are read to the record, the chair will state the outcome of the vote and the action. Rezoning requests that receive an unfavorable recommendation from the Planning Commission may be appealed by the applicant to the Wilmington City Council. Appeals should be in the form of a letter submitted to the city clerk within 10 days of this hearing. Any items being appealed will tentatively be heard by City Council on October 15th. At that point, having said that, we will move to old business first. And the first thing is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. So, commissioners, y'all had a chance to look at the meeting minutes, those things.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as they stand.
Second? We have a motion to approve, and we have a second to that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And we have one abstention. Okay. So having said that, let's walk through the old business for a minute. Item 1, it is my understanding that this item is to be withdrawn. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, item 1 has requested the item to be withdrawn, and both items 4 and 5 are requesting continuance. So, and staff would request that those items be moved up in advance of the items that will be heard, so those folks can make a decision whether to stay or go.
So we need to do this by item, right, for the commission to approve? Okay. So I need a motion to approve withdrawing item number 1.
Make a motion to withdraw item number 1.
Second.
I have a motion to approve, and I have a second by Commissioner Lennon and Commissioner Collier. That item, all in favor of withdrawing it?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That was easy. Item 4, again, is the applicant is requested to continue into October 2nd. The only thing I would ask is, of the city staff is, this is be the second time this has been continued. Are we reasonably comfortable that October 2nd is a good enough date? Will that get us to where the applicant and city needs to be?
The applicant not being present, I can't really answer that question. There's ongoing discussions with the staff and the Division of Coastal Management, how this relates to their rules. So that's the reason for the delay in this.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Mr. Chairman, I just thought it might be helpful to clarify for people watching that this is a code revision in regards to residential marinas.
That's a very good point. And so there is an element of complexity. It's not a simple, and if I understand, Mr. Chambers, that there's probably multiple areas this might affect within the city.
The code
Potential.
amendment is specific to waterfront neighborhoods in the R20 district, but there are complexities when it relates to how the Division of Coastal Management, approves CAMA permits for those facilities.
Okay.
And we're still trying to work that out.
Okay, in the sake of optimism, I'll entertain a motion to. Yeah, turn the microphone.
I'll have it on. Being the new person, I've been reading all the rules and regulations, and it says that the applicant or applicant's representative needs to be here if you're withdrawing or continuing. Is that correct?
City in this case. So they're here. So
Okay.
Brian's representing them. In this particular case, you're right.
I've been reading too much.
I don't have the rules in front of me. I'll have to defer to our attorney if that's the rule.
I believe that is consistent with the rules of procedure. The applicant is supposed to be present to make the request.
Yeah, at this point, the staff only received an email correspondence requesting continuance of the item.
Thoughts? No, that's a very good point. Thoughts?
Mr. Attorney, the applicant is not Catherine Thurston, it's the city of Wilmington, right?
Correct.
My understanding,
This is an applicant-initiated code amendment. The applicant is Sam Frank.
Oh.
Well, okay. A little quandary here. Yeah, let's come back to that one, and let's think on this one a little bit. And then the last thing I want to advise, and here we go, same situation, is item number 5, the applicant is requesting a continuance, and is the applicant here to,
This applicant is present.
then let's deal with that one right now.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name's Corey Lee, and I represent the applicant in this case. I'm an attorney here in Wilmington, and we are requesting a continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission.
Okay, comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move to continue it to the next scheduled meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to continue. We have a second. All in favor of continuing to the next meeting?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, in lieu of everything else, let's go back to item number 2 and move forward that way. So at this point, we're going to hear the case. It's a general rezoning, property containing 2.37 acres along Front Street, along Mosteller, and they want to move from a light industrial and R3 to medium to urban mixed-use district. Previewing this is Mr. Mahoney, so please.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. This site is located along Marsteller Street between South Front and South 2nd Streets. It includes a total of 11 parcels containing approximately 2.37 acres, and it's currently occupied by one large brick historic warehouse, some vacant land, a detached single-dwelling unit, and 2 commercial buildings. This map shows the general vicinity surrounding the request, as well as photos of the subject properties. Here are some photos of the subject site and surrounding roadways. And these are photos of the adjacent properties and land uses. There are, again, detached single-dwelling units located to the north, east, and south of the site. There are industrial uses located to the west of the site, as well as a church and a park, which are located to the east of the site. The site's currently zoned LI, light industrial, and R3 medium high density mixed residential. It is bordered by R3 zoning to the northeast and south, with LI zoning to the south and IND and general industrial zoning to the west. A portion of this subject property is located within the Wilmington Expansion National Register Historic District. According to the Wilmington Historic District boundary expansion and additional documentation, this brick warehouse, which is known as the Bear Saw Winery Building, was built in 1913 and is a contributing structure. On September 1st of 2020, City Council reviewed a rezoning of the properties located at 1121 South Front Street, 1112 South 2nd Street, 101, 104, 108, 112, 114, 115, and 116 Marsteller Street. This was a request as well from LI and R3 to UMX Urban Mixed Use. This item was continued out of concern for preserving the existing warehouse. On September 15th of 2020, at the applicant's request, City Council voted to remand the item back to Planning Commission to consider a conceptual site plan and consider a conditional rezoning of the subject properties to UMX CD, Urban Mixed Use Conditional District. On September 15th of 2020, the applicant submitted an application for a conditional district rezoning for the properties aforementioned for urban mixed use CD rezoning with a condition that the main building be preserved and not be demolished. Subsequently, on October 12th of 2021, prior to the City Council meeting on October 19th, the applicant requested a withdrawal of the conditional district rezoning application. So that's just some of the prior history of this case in this site. The subject property is identified as a post-industrial and inner-city revitalization area of opportunity and along a community connector on the Comprehensive Plan's Growth Strategies map. While the UMX zoning may be an appropriate zoning designation for this site, the plan does recognize that historic resources, including buildings, should be identified, preserved, and protected. The plan also defines historic preservation as the essence of Wilmington as a southern port city, and preservation is critical in shaping Wilmington's future urban form. Based on the previous city council history and direction and guidance from council, staff recommends denial of the proposed general rezoning, as there's no mechanism through a general rezoning to ensure the preservation of the existing historic structure on the site. Staff believes that the proposed zoning amendment is not consistent with recommendations of the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan and recommends denial. Happy to answer any questions that the commission has. The applicant is here as well with the presentation.
Any questions of staff? Commissioner Adams?
Do you have any specifics or details that you have from recollection or could share from the previous CD rezoning that was withdrawn from the applicant?
I would let the applicant speak to the nature of the withdrawal in that request.
Commissioner Lennon?
This is a little thing, but was the building built, one document says 1908, the other says 1913.
I can try and confirm that for you.
Okay,
I believe in my notes I had 1913, but
and the applicant may know this, but what was it used for? What was it built for?
I'll defer to the applicant.
Okay,
trying to look through my notes here.
sorry, I'm not,
No, you're fine.
that's fair. And my other question was similar to Commissioner Adams, is just, the comment was made that concern was expressed about the warehouse. I was just curious where that came from and what the concern was.
Are you referring to at the city council meeting? Mm-hmm. Yes, there was concern voiced from council about the preservation of the building, and but the general rezoning does not guarantee the preservation of that building. So at that point, council voted to remand it back to Planning Commission. So that's the reason for staff's recommendation being consistent with that recommendation from city council.
Can you go back to the area picture, aerial, please? That's good enough. Yep. To the west, what are all those round circles? I know what they are. They're gigantic fuel tanks, right?
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. And South Front Street currently is rated at an F, is that right? According to,
that portion, yes.
okay.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't hear that.
The, in their traffic analysis, South Front's rated F, yeah.
And for the public, F means?
It's bad. Yeah.
That's a rating based on the level of service.
Level of service from
I
DOT.
fully understand. I just
yeah.
wanted to be very clear for anybody watching at home and anybody here in the room.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Patrick, thank you. At this point, we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name's Matt Nichols. I'm an attorney in Wilmington. I'm here tonight representing the applicants, who are also the owners of all of the parcels. And with me this evening is Patrick Carroll, my client. This is the subject property. I know that the commission is familiar with the area, but when you look at the photograph here, what I would emphasize is this is surrounded on most sides by residential. It's a neighborhood. If you had the opportunity to rezone this property tonight, what zone would you put on it? I respectfully contend you would put UMX on this zone or on this property 9 times out of 10, if not every time. You would not put light industrial zoning on essentially all of this property. There's 2 parcels on the other side of Marsteller Street that are R3. I'm sorry, there's 3 parcels that are R3 and there's 2 that are light industrial. But the bulk of the property, or all of the property you see there in the big square, is light industrial without any conditions. You'd look at the comp plan, and the comp plan clearly supports a UMX zoning there. more importantly, you'd look at the small area plan, the South Side Small Area Plan, and that clearly calls for a UMX zone of this property, or essentially the main part of the property. But the area is, there's UMX generally in this area, and we would contend the lots on the other side of the street really just make sense as UMX also. In 2020, when this came before this commission for a general UMX rezoning, staff recommended approval. This commission unanimously recommended approval of a general UMX rezoning. I have copies of that 2020 staff report if any of the commissioners would like to see it. On the top of the screen is an excerpt from the 2020 report. On the bottom of the screen of these next slides is the current staff report. These are the same exact policies with different, in a few instances, vastly different analysis. Why, I don't know. 1.7.3, modest support, staff saying modest non-support. The staff report in 2020, 1.7.4, strong support, now that's non-support. 2020 report, 1.4.4, strong support, not in your staff report this time. Same here, I won't go through all these, but I'm glad to, and I'm glad to hand out the report if the commission would like to see it. This one is just vastly different. 11.1.1, strong support, 2020. Strong non-support as we sit here before you today. I can't explain that. I would respectfully contend there's some arbitrariness in that. These are the by right light industrial uses. My client could go out and do any of these today if he gets the building permits, goes through TRC. I don't think you'd want to see any of those uses on the left-hand side of the screen. I don't think any of the neighbors want to see any of those uses on the left-hand side of the screen. These are heavy uses. I think light is a little bit of a misnomer. These are industrial uses. This is metal coating, engraving. This is industrial laundry services, welding, commercial kennels, heavy equipment sales, rentals. On the right side of the screen, these are things that can be done not with a special use permit, but just if you meet the conditions. And I didn't include all of them on here. Again, I don't think you want to see the contractor storage yard. I don't think any of the neighbors want to see that. The comp plan does not support that. And this is an opportunity for the commission tonight to downzone this property at the property owner's request. This is a significant downzone, and we're asking you to please consider that. Frankly, I don't understand why staff is against this. I understand the comments from the previous city council hearing. City council never voted on the merits of this. And I'm glad to answer questions about that, the sort of the procedure and the process that went that. But city council has never voted on the merits of this request. So back to the property again, I would say this definitely should be UMX. This is a huge benefit to the neighborhood. I've been appearing before this commission for many years, and to me, that is the overriding concern that I hear on the vast majority of all the rezonings is what is good for the neighborhood? And that's a completely valid analysis in just about everything. So it will protect the neighborhood. It will get rid of these light industrial uses. It will allow residential, which you can't do in the light industrial. What's changed since 2020? We have an even bigger demand for residential in our city. There's many reports showing that. And you're going to support the economic viability of the property for the neighborhood benefit. Now, could you make economic use of this light industrial property? Absolutely you could. That's the other vantage point. Could somebody make viable economic use, intense use of that property in a light industrial manner? Yes, today they could. In fact, a lot of people looking at that might say that that would be a great site to put a contractor storage yard or other light industrial uses. But I don't think anybody wants to see that. So I know I only have 5 minutes. I'm probably out of time. I'm glad to answer questions. Thank you for your consideration, but we do strongly disagree with the staff recommendation of denial. Staff got it right in 2020. This commission got it right in 2020. This should be UMX. It's so much better than light industrial on this property. And thank you for your consideration.
Anybody with questions of the applicant? Commissioner Adams?
So if everything was done right in the past and a conditional district was in place, why isn't it still in place? Why was it withdrawn? If everything was so perfect and right in the past?
Well, there was nothing perfect or right about, I mean, if those were the words I used, that's not what I intended. The staff wanted us to look at the conditional. There was some comments at city council for us to look at conditional. So my client's an entirely reasonable person. That's what we did. We said, fine, we'll look at conditional. We'll see if we can craft a condition on this building. It's easier said than done. What happens if there's damage to the building? Can my client then, is he required to repair it, rebuild it? We got into sort of wordsmithing with staff on how to word that. The second component, and frankly, it was something that my client was not wanting to do at the time. Secondly, my client had since acquired, let me find these. So this is the current request, and that's the 2020 request. So my client did not include those properties in the 2020 request, one, because he didn't own these two. The concern at that time, and part of the reason to withdraw the application, was the concern of investing and going through this UMX process when those two parcels that have the arrows on them now remained light industrial, and they were owned by somebody completely different. So the idea of investing and developing that in a UMX capacity or UMX framework wasn't as appealing to him at the time, because those are being used in a manner that's really not consistent with developing that parcel. So my client, to his credit, he acquired those properties since the 2020 rezoning, and we've included those in there now. He has always owned, I would say always, he has owned for a while the other property to the north, I guess the northwest corner on on South Front Street. So again, that was the request in 2020. The discussion of trying to get somewhere with a condition, and then the concern with the other two parcels, he withdrew the application, which he had every right to do. And now we're back with all of this, asking for further consideration of the UMX, which we still think is by far better than the light industrial. And that's really the question before the commission. What's a better zone for this? Light industrial or UMX? That's what it boils down to. The discussion about the building, that's not something we're really bringing into the discussion. Could my client tear the building down today or tomorrow if he had the permits? Yes. He has no intention of doing that. I don't even like saying that, because I don't want that to be considered that he's even proposing that. He's owned the property since 1991. He's owned that building since 91. He's never once listed it for sale. He has, for the most part, completely rehabilitated that building. All at his cost, all at his expense. This wasn't tax credit. This wasn't other sources funding to restore the property. He's done that all on his own. His plan is to continue to own it, leave it to his children someday. He would like to make some better use of the property, some neighborhood scale, commercial, retail would be nice for the neighborhood, residential would be nice for the area. That's the background in this. And the discussion about the building and the building being torn down, that's not something he's not proposing that, he's never proposed that. But what we feel like is happening is just there's sort of this demand for him to put a historic easement on his property, and I completely understand why he's saying, no, I don't want to do that. And he's giving up a lot, I would contend, by taking it from light industrial to UMX. He's given up a lot of uses. And there's not a lot of light industrial left, certainly not sort of usable light industrial in downtown Wilmington like that. And so, you know, it's an opportunity to, I would say, take it off the zoning map as light industrial, get it UMX, and I think it would be a big benefit to the neighborhood. So that's the background of what happened.
Commissioner Lennon?
You said something a second ago. Am I to understand zoned light industrial right now, that building could have been torn down in 1992?
He could have torn it down after the whole 2020, he withdrew it. Again, I don't even like that type of discussion because I'm not sitting here saying he's ever going to do that or he wants to do that. But
I'm sorry, let me interrupt, because this,
Yes.
for me, this is a fairly big deal. Is the building currently under some sort of historic protection?
not to my knowledge, no, sir. Not to my client's knowledge, no, sir. It's not.
Mr. Chambers, can you opine on that?
It is not under any historic protection, no, sir.
Okay. And so, what is it used for currently?
I've got some photographs. I think it's been used for, there's a church service that takes place in there. There's some offices. I'm glad to show some photographs if the
Go ahead.
commission. Okay, thank you. I'll flip through these.
Yeah, I'll give you lenient on the time because this is
yeah.
an important topic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I have this on the screen, I can come back to some other UMX rezonings general that have been approved in the vicinity if the commission would like to see those, but I won't
Why
go.
don't you stick to answering
Yes,
Commissioner
sir.
Lennon's question?
I just wanted to, before I flip through these. Okay, here, I'll just go through some of these photos. Please stop me if I'm going too fast or too slow. I don't know exactly when these photographs were taken, but I think they're representative of what you'll see. Again, he's done a really nice job of fixing up the inside. Again, there's just no intent to tear this building down. I don't know why you ever would. It would cost a fortune to tear it down. It would cost an even bigger fortune to rebuild it, or something even equivalent to it. And you really could make all sorts of uses out of it. I think it's pretty unlimited.
So just continuing on that line of questioning, if I may, on the first page of your Exhibit A to rezoning application, the last sentence, or excuse me, second to last sentence of the first paragraph, while this industrial building has generally been used for office and warehouse space, it provides an excellent opportunity for adaptive reuse under Wilmington's UMX district and will serve as a focal point for this proposed new UMX district. Is that another way of saying that you're keeping it?
Yes, yes. I mean, I think you could do residential in here. You could do a vertical mixed use. You could do residential on any of the floors. You'll see the photographs. It actually has sort of a basement to it, and you'll see, let me flip through these. I think the last photograph shows how it's not a true basement, but you can go underneath the building, and you can see, the time I was in it, I was sort of amazed at the construction of it, just with the, I guess I don't know the word I'm looking for, the quality of the construction in it. If I'm not mistaken, this is sort of on the ground floor. That's the main level, okay. It was used for filming One Tree Hill. Yes, One Tree Hill used it for filming. I think it's been used in other similar type uses. I think this is the top floor. Patrick, is it? Patrick, yeah, help me narrate these. We'll flip through.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Carroll. Excuse me, and I'm the applicant. This is the top floor. One Tree Hill was filmed there for 11 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. One Tree Hill was filmed there for 11 years, utilizing the top floor of the building. So, a couple of things to correct. Matt is right, and the tax record will show, 1991 as ownership. Actually, that would be 33 years that we've had the property. But it's actually 35 years that we've had the property, because when we first looked at it, it was such in need of repair, there's no way you could get a mortgage on it. We spoke with the owners. They still wanted to sell it. It wasn't on the market to the general public. We just happened to come about it with them. And so basically, you couldn't get a mortgage on the property 35 years ago. So we purchased an equitable interest and basically took it for 2 years and ballooned it. So we've had an equitable interest ownership for 35 years. Now again, at that time, couldn't get a mortgage. You can see the roof here on the upper level. The trusses were falling in. The building was full of pigeons, and it was dripping with water for, I don't know, however many years of rain. Okay, you could see large swaths of daylight just walking up on the 3rd floor. So 35 years ago, that's a long time. It's a long time. And we ask ourselves, well, what was everybody doing 35 years ago? Well, I was restoring this building. And we've taken great care of it since then. And the city of Wilmington at that point, I don't know, but maybe they didn't know it was there. Nobody cared about the building. The Wilmington Historical Foundation, my understanding, was formed in the early 60s. I don't know, where were they? And again, I say that, I don't know where they were. I didn't ask where they were. We took the building, we turned it into what it is today. We restored it, we preserved it, and nobody in their right mind is tearing down this building. The UMX, as Matt had mentioned, is really the start to the highest and best use for this property. And once it's changed, that'll basically be the catalyst to bring that neighborhood in with downtown Wilmington and the other South Front District right on the other side with the satellite, Benny's Pizza. So it's the only thing left in the middle, and it'll be transitional, and it'll be best for the neighborhood. I will say 35 years ago, you couldn't walk in that neighborhood at night. Unfortunately, you still can't today.
Okay. Commissioner Lennon, a couple follow-ups?
So, thank you for that. In the period of your ownership, when I'm assuming you had to get a lot of building permits and work, as you did work in the building?
Yes.
Okay. And at no time were any restrictions put on those permits having to do with its historic significance?
No.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the majority of the renovations to the building, we added 3,000 plus square feet of office space. And the rest of it was pretty much just aesthetic, taking care of the brick and cleaning out everything that was there. Someone had asked what the building was initially.
So on that note, if you were doing exterior aesthetic issues, I'm not an expert in the historical district, but correct me if I'm wrong, those are the kinds of things they need to sign off on if that building were truly protected. Is that right?
I think it's truly protected now, so I'm not.
I appreciate that, but I'm saying if it was truly protected by some official designation as a historical site.
Well, basically, yeah, with a deed restriction, I don't know, it's very invasive from my understanding. And there's a value associated with the deed restriction on your property.
Let me back up. I'm asking.
Perhaps Matt could better answer that.
I think if I don't want to rephrase the question, but you were not required to go to the Historic Preservation Commission for his certificates of appropriateness and review under the historic guidelines and get special permission to get your building permit?
Correct.
Okay.
What he said. Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? Go ahead. Commissioner
Thank you,
Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Nichols, I'm sorry, sir, what was your name again?
Patrick Carroll.
Harold?
Carroll.
Carroll?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Carroll. 35 years is a long time. I applaud your ownership and dedication to the building. One question I do have in mind, though, because it relates to the Southside Small Area Plan. Question number one to that would be, since you've owned it since 1991, did you participate in that? That was a very robust citizen, stakeholder, property owner, city staff, culmination of a plan, which I think 7 to 10 meetings with field visits and whatnot. Was your voice heard in that plan?
I don't believe that it was at that point.
I think that was 2009.
Okay.
Okay. And you're right, Mr. Nichols, this has come through planning with approval, it looks like twice. The first time it was remanded back. Must have, I'm assuming, passed planning this commission on its way back to the city council, and then it was withdrawn. So could you speak to why it was withdrawn again?
So, and again, I think, as Matt had mentioned, it was perfect from the staff with the planning commission, unanimous. Funny time, 2020, it was COVID. And when it went to council, I was out of town, but I was watching while Matt was doing the presentation. And again, during COVID, it was a very funny situation and setup. But I recall that everything seemed to be going very well. And then one of the council members had a question, and his question was to the staff: why in the world would you allow this to come this far without putting some sort of restriction on these property owners? And to me, it was a head scratcher to me. I had to catch my breath for a minute. Seemed like a very odd question to put a restriction on these property owners, and almost was berating the staff. Again, I wasn't here. Matt called me on the phone because it had taken a turn after that. And I don't know if it was odd because it was COVID and people were working remotely, but it took a turn, and then it just started talking about the building, and they're going to be able to demolish the building. And I'm thinking, wow. Matt called me and he said, yeah, they're talking about you demolishing the building. Would you consider talking about any language or something? And I said, yeah, nobody's tearing down the building. I guess, yeah, I might talk about some language and not demolishing the building. And that's kind of what happened with all of that. And so then we did have a couple of discussions about it, and it got to the point of that it just was much more than not demolishing the building. So the language, we couldn't even talk anymore. And they were talking, they wanted a full historic preservation easement, basically, from my understanding.
Thank you. That brings a lot more clarity. So this topic was heard by council. It was withdrawn in the midst of the discussion. So initially, an applicant withdrawal, remanded back to the planning, go through the process again. It's being heard by council, withdrawn again based on comments you were receiving in real time.
So, right, we
Okay.
brought it back because we were going to discuss the language.
Right,
And
okay.
then that could never be decided upon.
And my other question would be really relevant to the Southside Small Area Plan, because when you actually read the 58 pages, it's a beautiful document, and it's but what you're proposing to us this evening seems to be in direct conflict with that southern side of Marsteller Street, which was identified to remain residential. Can you speak to why you're looking for that to be rezoned UMX?
So there are 5 parcels there, 2 of which are light industrial. So it seemed to make sense to have some continuity and change it all at the same time. Because right now, there are 3.
So you're saying that the parcels south side of Marsteller are light industrial? 2 of them are. 2 of them are.
2 of them are. And they're very small lots. So you have 2 small light industrial, 3 small R3s. So it made better sense from a planning standpoint to just kind of trim it up and have it all of the same.
Okay. Thank you. I was under the impression those were all R3 on that south side. Thank you for that answer. That's fine.
Go ahead. Thank you. I was on the Planning Commission in 2020 when you came before us. In both cases, I think the small area plan, in our opinion at the time, did hold up to UMX. We did have the same discussion on the light industrial parcels. When it came back as a conditional district, the agreement, the nod was that those parcels across the street would stay residential use, even under the UMX zoning code. There are 3 parcels. There would be R3 parcels in the end, which is what I think we've talked a lot about in having in this area, is going back to those R3 parcels. Somehow the building and putting a historical value to it took a life of its own, I believe, as you said. I think we were all a little bit surprised.
That's correct.
It's not right or wrong. It took on a life of its own. When we went through it here, both cases, the zoning made sense. It makes sense. I did not want the light industrial. I don't want the storage that's sitting out there right now in that neighborhood, in the residential area. Not that it's bad storage, but I mean, it is still storage yard almost. I think Mr. Carroll spoke very well, and so did Mr. Nichols on, there was no intent whatsoever to tear the building down, change the building, do anything to it. And I think the commission at the time agreed with all of that, and there was never any thought that they would be doing it. We saw most of the same pictures at that time. It appears that may have been some different things happening since then. The church service, I don't think, was there in 2020, but there was another use that it was being used for. So it came down to us. UMX was the appropriate zoning for that area. Light industrial was not it, because if Mr. Carroll decided, hey, I'm selling my property, and he sells it out to light industrial, that building's coming down first, and they're going to do whatever they build. We're going to get the gas tanks that are across the street, or a stockpile of something, because it all is within the rights, the by right use of light industrial. So that's where we came from. The council had a different opinion. When they brought it back to us the second time, it was purely because they wanted to put a conditional use on the land. Understood that completely, and I think Mr. Carroll's plan that Mr. Nichols presented, that made sense. It was, they described it in a way that it worked within a UMX setting, and it worked in that particular piece of property. As I said the other day in our meeting, and other times, there are certain times a straight rezoning will work. I think this is a down zoning. It's a good down zoning, and I'm surprised it wasn't UMX when the UMX district was created 15, 20 years ago now. So.
Commissioner Woodruff.
Just real quick, I don't have any problem with the zoning request, and it seems like somewhere somebody is hung up on this historic thing. I mean, I think what I understand of the history, which we've got a lot from, that came from here, that wasn't an issue at any point in time. It didn't come up, and then it's got a life of its own as a result of council. I don't know what's going to happen here, but it seems to me this is going back to council. They brought it up. We don't seem to have any consensus here as to why it came back. This demolition or just historic preservation, wraparound. I don't know. I don't know how to deal with it. The zoning, like I say, is fine with me. So, like I say, the way I'm looking at it, good luck at council.
Any other comments? Commissioner Lennon?
And I'm sorry to belabor this, but I just hope somebody's listening. While you all are standing there, So currently, your understanding is that you could sell the property to a light industrial user or make a decision yourself to put a light industrial use on it and demolish the building?
Yeah,
I just
kind of
need,
funny, yeah.
okay. No, but I'm saying if you chose to, you wake up tomorrow.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
right,
Mr.
so-
Chambers, is there anything that the city of Wilmington could do to prevent the demolition of that building as it sits today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions
Just
for?
to reiterate, obviously, we have no intention of entertaining anything like that.
No, I appreciate that, but I also appreciate, I think, to me, this was very enlightening in that there are no restrictions in place currently, and you're being asked to have them applied to you, so I get it.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Excuse me, yes, Mr. Chair, do you have a slide that shows the light industrial on the south side of Marsteller, please?
I don't know if I have the zoning map in my presentation.
It doesn't appear to be in our packet.
But you have,
That's why I'm caught by surprise on this.
But I can definitely show you which part. Well, this kind of shows it. Well, it's hard to see, but coincidentally, this is when the city rezoned what I understand to be about 600 parcels to UMX General in 2013. And I circled where the property was. And to Commissioner Collier's point, yeah, it probably should have been zoned to UMX back then. And all that's general. And I've got some slides. I can show you some properties in there that you definitely would not want to tear down in there. And I don't know, there wasn't much of a concern to zone those UMX, and they haven't been torn down. But that's shown in like the burgundy, the burgundy color. But you can see on there, it's the two parcels right on, if you were to turn off South Front onto Marsteller, the very first two parcels you come to right by the railroad track are light industrial. Here we go. Back one here. Here we go. It's the first two parcels, the left side of the
side,
screen.
yeah, I see
Yeah,
it
those
right
are
here.
light industrial now.
Right there.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Kofer, I did just notice on page 5 of our packet, it does indicate that those lots are zoned LI and R3, but it doesn't show it on the map. It's in the grid.
The verbiage is there, but the
Right.
picture is not. Okay.
The way the map is drawn, the dark line, the black line, is the outline of the LI. It's showing zoning uses versus zoning type. Zoning classification is LI, and it's everything, even the red, the yellow, the purple that's in that gridded area is all light industrial. Correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I'm sorry, that was confusing. I understand now.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. We will try to stay to the 10 minutes, but this has been, I think, an important discussion. A lot of points of clarification, I think, have come up in this discussion that will probably come up again before we vote on this. So at this point, I'll open the public hearing. We'll start with anyone who wants to speak in favor of this project, and Patrick will, 10 minutes total. So at this point, anyone that wants to speak in favor of the project? And when you come up, please, identify your name, for the record and speak into the microphone.
My name is Frank Brown. I live at 114 Mears Street, and I think it's a great idea to get the rezoning in this. The only concern I would have would be the alley that goes between Second and Front Street. To what is the width of it going to be? Are they going to infringe upon the alley? Is it going to be use for trash pickup from the residential sections. Other than that, I think it's a good plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the project?
Hi, my name is Jeff Hubbis, at 205 Forest Hills Drive. I would be the person that would have to fill this with the industrial use. I work in that neighborhood, sell quite a few houses, and that's how I met Mr. Carroll. In the discussions, it is, if I was told to do that, I could fill this all day, but it is not the right thing for this neighborhood. And it was refreshing to have that conversation with him. And I just wanted to express that I think it naturally flows. Back when planning did the 2020, I was on the Planning Commission when we voted unanimously for that and sort of watched the process. And it did become somewhat political, which I'm allowed to say because I'm just a non-member of that. So, but I would like to consider it as, and I appreciate your attention and time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the project?
My name is Helen Johnson.
Speak a little closer to the mic.
My name is Helen Johnson. I'm a resident in the neighborhood of 2nd Street. You were asking questions about the building. I was born in that neighborhood. And the yellow piece that's across, if the building is on the left and that parcel is on the right, those were 3 houses that were there. They all burned. That neighborhood has been residential, and it seems like when they turned it into light industrial, they started putting dumpsters in there, which made our neighborhood look real bad. And all we're asking is try to maintain it as close to being family-oriented as possible. I don't understand the urban mix. I do know that it's okay to have different businesses because we have Habitat, which has a part of it in our neighborhood. But industrial, we would rather not have that if possible. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the project? Patrick, how we doing on time?
7 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Paul Connor. I'm born and raised in Wilmington, North Carolina, and a resident of the Front Street District. And I think rezoning this would really strengthen the entryway to our city. It's always been kind of a shameful point for me when people come over the bridge, and I feel like it would be a good look coming to our city to see something like this go down.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the project? Okay, seeing none, then anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the project? Again, anyone wanting to speak in opposition to the project? Anyone have any comments on the project at all in the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at this point and move to a general discussion amongst the commissioners. And I know I have a couple questions, Commissioner Collier. So if you, based on what you were saying, because what's, for me, I walked in tonight with a set of facts, and I'm sitting here now with a lot of data points that kind of, conflict with those facts. So is this effectively what they're proposing, the same thing as you said when you were on the commission?
From the straight rezoning of land, yes, plus the addition of the 2 additional parcels.
Okay.
Which what it would have left before was still that light industrial piece in between them. So this cleans all of that light industrial in this block. It cleans that light industrial out.
The other question I would have, and it's more to the city staff and Mr. Satterfield, to you as well, is there seems to still be the confusion on this. How did the historical discussion come up? Because I have to admit, I walked in here tonight thinking this thing was protected either by on, you know, the Register of Historical Properties or some type of historical protection. And I'm sensing right now that that's really not the case. And and that leads me to, wasn't that the reason that the staff has recommended the denial was because of the protection of a historically coded building? So help me out with that.
Well, the structure is considered contributing, but it doesn't have any historic protection on it. There's no easement. It's not zoned under a historic overlay or a local district. Staff's recommendation is based on council's action. We looked at this through the lens of that action. That's why the policy analysis changed, because that's what council told us, and that's what that's where we picked up the ball. We believe UMX is an appropriate zoning. We didn't change our opinion on that, but we looked at this through the lens of council's past action.
So based on that, let me put it in my words. Council made a ruling. It came back down. The applicant withdrew his conditional application, and this thing has been kind of sitting since 2021. Is that right? 2020?
I think they officially withdrew the application in September, October of '21.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioner Lennon.
I want to differ just a little bit. If I heard Mr. Nichols correctly, there was no ruling. It was simply conversation. Is that correct?
The city council voted unanimously to remand this back at the applicant's request for him to pursue a CD.
For the purpose of
Protecting.
applying restrictions to the future of that building?
Yeah, for the purpose of applying a condition on the property to protect that structure. And like the applicant said, we went back and forth on several iterations of what that language actually was. The condition changed multiple times throughout that year of deliberation, and then ultimately they withdrew it.
I think just, I wish our packet had more detail in it. I'm just going to say that, because and I'm extremely thankful that you were here tonight. And I'm extremely thankful that I asked the question about any existing restriction on the building. So, and I feel respectfully, that should have been better noted in here, I think.
Mr. Collier.
Brian, in UMX zoning inside of the 1945 corporate limits, it doesn't have the same map notifications as outside, or as it did previously. Is that right? What are the zoning requirements if they came forward, if it went to UMX, was rezoned, if they came forward with a plan? What are the requirements under UMX inside of 1945? Is there a public meeting involved with it? Is there a site plan involved with it at all?
No, this is entirely different than what I think you're referring to, the MX district, which has a different set of standards. UMX in the new code is only allowed in the 45 corporate limits. Those UMX districts that were rezoned outside of the 45 became legacy districts. So if it's zoned UMX and it's a general rezoning, they would just submit for site plan review and comply with the code.
That's what I thought was out. It was not outside any longer. UMX was only inside of the 45 corporate limits. I was hoping that it still had at least the notification piece, which gives everybody a look at a plan, but it does not in the 45 corporates, which I think was intentional because of where it's zoned, so that the uses could be, the process could move along quicker if someone chose to build in those areas.
Commissioner Kofer? There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And forgive my confusion reading the map that we're all looking at right now. So I understand how to read it now. LI in the dark, bold outline, even though we're seeing a blend of zoning and uses. Coming in, I think this is a good example of keeping a real open mind at a public hearing, which we are charged to do. You know, I did see some conflict with the South Side Small Area Plan. I have a lot of respect for these plans when they come through the process, guided and shepherded by staff, bringing the community out, the neighborhood out, all the stakeholders in these small areas to really have their voice heard and their vision of their neighborhood put on paper, and a roadmap for folks like us to follow. Now knowing that there is light industrial on the south side of Marsteller Street, even though that is, the plan does call for that south side to be residential, it now becomes, do you want it to remain light industrial? Or would you like to see it go to UMX? UMX is obviously a much more favorable zoning on that for light industrial, and at this point, UMX does seem like it fits really well into the Southside Small Area Plan. The trouble I have with straight rezonings is that it does not have a neighborhood meeting piece. I think that the neighborhood 9 times out of 10 does deserve the right to meet with the applicant one-on-one before they get to this level, and certainly before they get in front of council. That being said, the neighborhood has at least one young lady who spoke on their behalf, who was born and raised in this neighborhood and speaks in support of UMX rezoning, and not hearing any other objections from some in the audience that also may have a stake in this area. I'm going to be in favor of this particular straight rezoning, even though it doesn't, again, have that critical community meeting piece. Which is what the developer or the applicant would generally share their plan with the community. But I do think it fits really well with the Southside Small Area Plan, and that's going to be, for me personally, speaking on my behalf, that's going to be my guide for this area. It's already on paper, and it's already been vetted by the neighborhood and the stakeholders. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to, break with process here for a minute, because I did, when I closed the public hearing, I forgot to acknowledge the fact that there is one public comment that we've received, and it should be in everybody's folder, and I'm going to assume that everybody's had a chance to look at it. Okay. Well, it kind of covers both. It talks to both, but yeah. Okay. Commissioner Adams.
I respect precedent in a lot of ways, and decisions and how they can set precedent. But the past decisions of staff, planning commission, city council, they're the past for me. We're tasked to look at this through today's lens, so that's how I'm judging this project. This is the exact kind of site where conditional zoning is absolutely critical in my mind. Someone was just asking a question about the alley. Well, design and details matter in sites like this. Irrespective if it's a historic building or structure or not, there are a whole bunch of other considerations when I think about the adjacent residential areas, how this building, how does it present itself on the street? What is it like in size and scale? Is it a good urban infill project? I hear a lot of aspirational things that are words, but I need more assurance than that this will be a good plan, this works. And yes, preserving, a neat old building, I think is one part of it. There are a lot of other issues that are, really design and detail for me. I really have to agree with staff on this, this site, and a conditional rezoning is something that I cannot support. I do agree that light industrial is not the appropriate use. No argument there. But again, I'm a big proponent in guardrails, and I think this is a site that we need to understand the intent better than not.
What else? Okay. The only thing I'll say is, and my peers up here know this, I've never been a big fan of general rezoning, never have been. It doesn't make it wrong, it's a personal predilection. And as I read through the package, and we've had a lot of discovery and information tonight, I would have liked to have seen, and I'll use your words, guardrails, from a conditional standpoint. And I know we seem to be plowing old ground, but that's unfortunately is what we've got here is plowing old ground. So it's just a comment and an observation. Having said that, any other comments? Do I have a,
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
okay. So let me be clear. If you make a motion to approve the request, that would be approve the denial or approve what, I just want to be clear because we got one of those oddball things.
Let me just read there at,
I think you'd be approving the request for the rezoning.
Yeah.
That's, I just want to be clear, for everybody watching. Okay.
All right. I move to approve agenda item number 2, the request to rezone 1107, 1109 South Front Street, 1106, and 1112 South Second Street, 101, 104, 108, 112, 114, 115, and 116 Marsteller Street from light industrial to, and R3 to UMX. The Planning Commission finds this request is consistent with the objectives and policies of the following plans adopted by the City of Wilmington: the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan and the Southside Small Area Plan. The Planning Commission considers its approval to be reasonable and in the public interest because the proposal allows for compatible redevelopment that is consistent with the surrounding area, and therefore the Planning Commission recommends approval of this request.
Commissioner Kofer has made a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Lennon has seconded the motion. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion is passed. Good luck. Okay. Let's move on. Our next item on the agenda is item number 3, which is closure of a portion of an unnamed alley between South Front and South Second Street, approximately 131.49, that's approximately, in length, consisting of .07 acres plus or minus of land. At this point, Senior Planner Patrick Mahoney is going to present this to the Commission.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. You will remember that this item was continued from your last meeting in August, but for those who weren't here, I'll give a brief refresher. So the request has been updated for the portion of the alley, the unnamed alley between South Front and South Second to be closed. So the maps before you are showing the updated portion that has been provided to staff by the applicant. Here again is the general vicinity surrounding the request, as well as some photos of the existing conditions and some of the adjacent properties along this unimproved alley. Here again is the land use and zoning map, as well as the new portion proposed to be closed. So this is the previous closure survey that was provided last month at your meeting. And here is the revised closure survey. Again, the applicants essentially tightened the area of which to be proposed to be abandoned. They've also provided some measurements and distances between the adjacent properties to the north and across the alley to the properties to the south. Again, staff recommends approval of this closure. It was consistent with the comprehensive plan. Again, there's staff's recommendation of support to allow for connectivity and future redevelopment of the property to the south. And then again, just a comparison of the two, kind of showing the change that's been proposed by the applicant. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. The applicant's here as well to maybe address some of the concerns that were discussed at the last meeting.
One quick question. When I was here, or at agenda review yesterday, there was a discussion that, and if you back up a slide, if you would please, keep going back. Right there. This is an engineer's new plot map that's given to us by the applicant, correct?
That's correct. This is a survey plat.
Okay.
From a
Has
surveyor.
the city approved
Yes.
this rendering, and has it been uploaded to what, GIS system? Has that been done yet, or?
No, that would come at a later time
Okay.
if it is closed. However, this survey and the legal description provided by the applicant has been approved by the city engineer.
So the
Yes.
city engineer and the applicant are in sync?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions from council or from commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. I, prior to the meeting, requested Pat to provide any kind of original plat, which this area references the city of Wilmington. There's no plat map book page reference, and he was able to provide that. It looks like these alleys, to your understanding, were created by deed reference. This alley did not exist on the original plan of the city of Wilmington.
Right, the original references date back to the original platting of the city, through, later actions taken by the property owners in the city. That's when the lots were subdivided in the current configuration along with the alleys.
Right. Just history's sake.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
Thank you.
Wait a minute, hang on.
Oh, yeah.
Pure curiosity, what's the definition of an alley, size-wise?
I could probably look at the current technical standards, which are going to be a little different than what
Surely.
currently exists out there. I think the standard is, I believe, 20 feet wide.
This one starts at like 9 feet, ends at 13 feet?
Yeah, it ranges from 9 to 13. I think at its widest point, based on the proposal, would be 30 feet wide, so variety of widths.
But it appears that by what we're being asked to now close is not having any effect on any property owner that's on the north side of this alleyway anyway.
Not that I'm aware of. It definitely lessens the portion of closure to the north that moves further south.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lennon?
Curiosity's sake again, so does the city own the September proposal hashed area?
I'm not sure I understand
The area on the picture on the left?
Yes,
Who owns that?
that is right of way. That's public right of way,
Okay, so the city owns that currently?
technically, yes.
Okay. But then there was a comment that the rest of the alley to the north that runs east to west is by deed reference and is not owned by the city?
There's just no original plat that shows the alley.
Okay.
The original plat was the city of Wilmington, and there it is right there.
Okay.
Okay.
But the east-west access is going to remain based on an action we would take
The only
tonight.
portion that would be closed would be the portion highlighted in green in the map on the left for
Okay.
the September proposal.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Staff? Okay.
Thank you.
Pitch. Applicant will now step forward.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Matt Nichols. I appreciate your time this evening. I know we had a hearing on this last month, so I'm glad to go through the presentation, but we've updated the proposed alley closure area as requested and had the surveyor show the fence on the same map, and we've reduced the area. And I think there was some concern by one of the residents across the alley about, but we've I would say significantly brought that back in relation to his concern. So I have a presentation, I'm glad to go through it, but I think Pat did a great job just going through the slides. So just to hit a couple highlights. again, my client has owned the property, I guess, in the sort of the northwest corner for quite some time, and then purchased the two of the surrounding properties in 2022. And we've sort of reduced the size of the proposed closure area. And we also had John Wayne, our surveyor, add some more dimensions on there so you can get different reference points on the widths of the alley. And that's actually one of the widest points, I would say, of the alley. So we would respectfully contend there's not any adverse impact on other property owners. So glad to answer questions that the commission may have. Appreciate your time very much.
Historically speaking, from the last meeting, I believe it was Jonathan Hill.
Yes, sir.
Have you guys settled with him on, he's got the turnaround and the access that he talked about last month?
We spoke to him after the hearing last time, and then my understanding was, because you can see the fence on there, this is now coincides with the fence, or roughly coincides with the fence, and my understanding was he didn't have any issues with what was currently available to be used there. I don't know if Mr. Hill's here this evening.
He is not.
Mr. Chair, he is.
We have his comment.
You do?
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we have
did
his comment.
speak with him. He said he was submitting a comment.
Yeah, we'll
And he was improved.
we'll get to his comment in the public hearing, so.
Yes, sir. I don't know if I answered the question, Mr.
It
Chairman.
does.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
any questions of the applicant? Okay, Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll open the public hearing. And again, same rules apply, 10 minutes for proponents, 10 minutes for opponents. So at this point, is there anyone out in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this proposal?
Again, my name is Frank Brown. I own 114 Mere Street. My question is, and my property goes out the furthest into the alley. Is the line that's going to be drawn that measures the width of the alley going to be from my property line to the other side? Or how do they?
I think we'll have to have the applicant answer that question when we come back. Let's go through the opponents and proponents, and then that'll be a question that we would ask the applicant to answer.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That's the only, thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this project? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this project? Seeing none, we do have the one email from a citizen, and basically it says, so I'll read it because it's pretty short. It says, I live on the other side of the alley, immediately across from the section proposed to be closed, and use the alley daily. The updated proposal, as illustrated on the new survey, will have no impact on the usefulness of the main alley between Front Street and Second Street. Therefore, I support approval. Rezoning the proposed area from light industrial to UMX will allow uses which are generally less intrusive and potentially beneficial, shops, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, I support approval. Again, seeing no one, one last call. Anyone wishing to speak on this item at all? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll ask the applicant to come back and address the gentleman's question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure I understand where the gentleman lives or his property.
It's Mr. Brown that lives, right in the middle.
Oh, I see.
It was adjacent to Mr. Hill,
Okay.
Adjacent to
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Hill,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
just to the west, or to the east.
To the east, yes.
Okay, yes, sir. I don't think this would have any impact at all because,
His question was, how is it being measured? From the edge of his property to the edge of where it's being closed? Do I have it right? That's his question. How's it being measured?
The dimension of 21.4 feet and 21.9 feet,
Yes.
that I would have to ask the surveyor what control points Mr. Wayne was referencing there. I can't speak for the surveyor on that, but we're not proposing anything that would reduce any access or way across from Mr. Brown's property on the alley. I think that was for illustration purposes. We asked Mr. Wayne to show that, to show, one, just the obvious point that the alley's not a uniform width, but also specifically in the area of the proposed closure of what the width was there. And we wanted to do that really to show Mr. Hill too, of the dimension, and also show the fence. So I can't
Mr.
speak for
Chair,
Mr.
may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Nichols, would you, while we're both staring at the same piece of paper, would you take a stab at agreeing with an engineer and some other architects and whatnot up here that the 21.4 is to the EIP, the existing iron pipe, and then the EIP to the EIP looking north, that L7 is in the grid down on the left hand of the page, L7's 5.99 feet?
Yes, sir, that's my reading of the
Okay,
map.
so we would say, I would probably be willing to bargain that it's 21.4 plus 5.99 feet is the total length between property lines?
Yes, sir, I would say that's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, that would be my, unless someone objects, that would be my reading here.
Commissioner Collier?
No, I think you're absolutely, I don't think it changes the relation between those two properties at all. I think the previous closure would have, but the new one does not.
Yes, sir, correct. That's my understanding also. Yes, sir.
Mr. Brown, does that answer your question? Okay.
Chairman, just
Yeah.
one
Mr.
last,
Adams?
one last maybe point of clarity. I interpret this survey to also say that the fence in the back of Mr. Brown's yard is already inside the property line as well. So that should just give another point of reference that I don't think there's any issue with this either.
Yes, sir, that's how I read that also. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments from to the applicant while he's here? Okay. So we've closed the public hearing. I guess let's go around, around the table here. Commissioners, any other comments, suggestions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion if there are no other questions or comments.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to move approval of agenda item number 3, portion of an unnamed alley between South Front Street and South Second Street for right-of-way closure. This request is consistent with the objectives and policies of the following plans adopted by the City of Wilmington, the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan. Excuse me. The Planning Commission considers this approval to be reasonable and in the public interest, as closing this public right-of-way would not impair the surrounding public street network and would not adversely impact neighboring properties. Therefore, the Planning Commission recommends approval of this request.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by motion by Commissioner Lennon, seconded by Commissioner Collier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 None. Pass 7-0. Okay. Let's move to the rest of our meeting, and that is, let me get something here real quick. Do we have items from the commission? So let's go around. Commissioners?
Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I just want to go back. We still have item number 4.
Oh, God, thank you. Thank you.
But I have, and just, if I may.
Oh, go right ahead. Thank you. Keep me honest.
Mr. Attorney, is there not a way that we can, I say unilaterally, but that the commission can make a motion to continue this just because we don't want to hear it tonight?
I was getting to that point.
Okay.
My understanding is that the applicant made written request for a continuance and was acting under the impression that he did not need to be here on behalf of his client. So I think fairness would dictate that a motion be considered by the commission.
So let me
And I
make,
don't
let
think that's inconsistent.
let
with
me ask
this
a question, but going forward, you know, you stated earlier when asked the question that, yes, the rule actually says that the applicant needs to be present. So my question to you is, do we consider a written letter as being present, or do we mean physically present? What does the rule mean? What is the intent of the rule?
It's in the rule of procedures that Commissioner Jones referred to. It does say that the applicant needs to be present to request the continuance. Going forward, that should be the practice.
Yes.
But I can tell you again, it has been done this way in the past by a written request, and I think, again, that's the fair thing to do under these circumstances, but that's the commission's call.
So, Commissioner Lennon, your point would be is one-time exception, but going forward, we need to adhere to the rule.
I didn't say the last part.
That's why I'm asking for clarification.
But I do think I think going forward, it should be clear for everybody. I do recall times when we've done continuances where there's not been anybody here.
Yeah.
But staff has indicated written requests for that. So frankly, maybe that's something council needs to take up. I don't know if that's in our purview or not, but in this particular case, I think if he submitted a written request to continue it, I'd be prepared to make a motion to that based on what everybody else wants to do.
Why don't you go ahead and make a motion? Commissioner Kofer.
Commissioner Lennon, were you going to make a motion? Is that what you said? Okay. Would you, I guess, just to clarify before the motion is made, one last piece of discussion, that we are discussing agenda item number 4, the LDC amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue agenda item number 4, Land Development Code Amendment to amend City Code Chapter 18 to add a definition for residential marina and allow such uses in the R20L zoning district until the October 2nd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second.
Made a motion. Commissioner Adams has seconded. Commissioner Kofer has a comment, or, nope, you're good, okay. Having said that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Being no opposition, then that motion passes as well. So if we go down, item number 1 has been withdrawn, passed. Item number 2 we've talked about. Item number 3 we've talked about. Item number 4 we have now just voted to continue. And item number 5, again, was voted to continue. So I think we've covered the main items on our agenda tonight. So at this point, let me go to items from the commission. I'm sorry, sir? Agenda number 5 was voted on earlier in the evening that said that it was passed 7-0 to continue to October 2nd. The applicant withdrew yesterday, or made the application to continue yesterday. Yes. She came up and formally asked, as the attorney for the applicant, asked for the continuance. So we were wondering, is there a reason why? Can we get an explanation why this being continued, sir? Well, I think, you know, I'm going to look to Mr. Chambers for a minute. Did the applicant give any reason why they were looking for a continuance? Because we're normally pretty, you know, we like to work with the applicants as much as possible, but Brian?
The only thing I'm aware of is they wanted more time to work on their proposal.
So, okay, I mean, it's basically it. I don't think it's any more complex than that, from my opinion.
No, Mr. Chairman, just might add, it's not been inconsistent, at least in my time of service here, that if there's hurdles or potential public concern for an item to be continued, to either address those concerns or completely change their plans.
Yeah.
I would also note that a well-known local media outlet incorrectly put on 2 newscasts today that this item was going to be heard at this meeting.
Yeah, I saw those too.
And I think that's inexcusable, to be blunt. So I apologize that you all weren't informed.
Yeah, you have my apology as well, but I don't know what else to say, sir. I really don't.
It'll take place in October.
Thank you, sir, and sorry for the confusion. Okay. Let's move forward then. Are there any items from the commission? I'll start with Commissioner Jones. Any items you want to add? Okay. Commissioner Collier.
I would say welcome to Ms. Livian Jones. I think she'll be a great addition to our team. And I did enjoy our joint meeting with the council last week.
Absolutely.
I thought it was quite informative, and I think everyone spoke their minds on both sides, so it brought a little more clarity on what the council position is on certain items. So I've enjoyed that.
Commissioner Kofer? Commissioner Lennon? Okay, I'll take that as we'll move right past that one. Commissioner Woodruff. Commissioner Adams.
I'd just like to echo what Mr. Collier said. I found the information exchange extremely helpful to share our points of view and to hear council's points of view. And Brian and I were talking before the meeting. It would be really good for us to explore ways to have even more dialogue like that amongst, I'll say, the 3 parties, staff, council, and planning commission. So I really thought that was a great exercise for us all.
We'll make an exception.
Sorry. No, you reminded me of something. First of all, I didn't mean to come off to sound, I did feel like the agenda item number 2, I felt like our packet was not as complete as it needed to be. I also think I was a little bit, the way I look at this is that we rely so heavily on staff for the expertise and the technical knowledge and the history. It's fair to say that there are times when staff makes recommendations that are based on items other than what's specifically in the code or what makes good planning sense. And those are driven by forces outside your control. And so I don't know how you send that message in this document, but I think if the right questions had not been asked here tonight, somebody's property would have been imposed upon, or potentially. We would just make that recommendation. But I guess what I'm saying, and this is not staff's problem, but maybe a message to council is if there's a political will to not move something forward, I wish we could know that. Because from a planning standpoint, I think Mr. Nichols did a good job of saying, on this day they said this, and on this day they said that. So.
I appreciate that. I would say that staff, we do apologize. We probably should have been more clear that what we were basing that recommendation on. Our analysis did change based on the experiences we had back in 20 and 21. So we looked at it through that lens because there was an in-depth discussion about the preservation of that building. So that's kind of what we were looking at. We do support the UMX zoning there, just like we did back 4 years ago. Again, we were just reacting to what happened at council in those 2 meetings back in 2020. So I apologize if we weren't as clear as we should have been on that.
My only comments were, again, I'll echo the comments made by the prior commissioners on the outstanding time spent with the council and staff last week. The video replay of that is up on the webpage now, and I would encourage you to take a look at it, because I watched it today, and it was interesting. I mean, I picked up on some things that were said that, you know, either I was writing something or whatever, and it was just good to be able to go back and listen through and understand the context. So I would recommend that. The other thing I will before we go to the staff, I will apologize. I'll be better organized next time, and that's all I'll say. Items from the staff, Mr. Attorney.
I have nothing.
Okay, Mr. Chambers.
A couple things. I just want to update on what council's actions were last night. They did vote to approve the general rezoning on McCray Street, and they also voted to approve the workforce housing apartment complex on South Kerr Avenue. And then finally, I would also like to welcome our new commissioner, Ms. Jones, to the commission.
I'm sorry? Well, the public hearings are closed. I mean, what? Yeah, but we're not hearing that now, so, but I understand the point you're making, and thank you. Yep. Without anything else, do I have a motion to adjourn? Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.